This is the Dark Zero Horror Network. Psychological Autopsies.
Hey, what are you doing?
Getting things ready for Mom.
Mom's dead, Jeff.
She doesn't have to be.
Something strange.
Now, I didn't think much about it until I saw him drag the body out of the coffin.
Something ancient.
Bury your own.
Something evil.
Was it your idea of a joke to send me blood from a dead animal?
This dog is alive.
Not this dog.
Something terrifying is happening in Ludlow, Maine. Again.
Pick up your family and get the hell out of that town!
Pet Sematary Two.
Jeff, honey. Father and I need to talk.
Some stories just won't stay dead.
So what happens when a horror film, one that's defined by this profound, agonizing grief, gets a sequel that just throws all of that out the window?
And instead, it just gleefully embraces chaos.
Pure chaos. We're talking about a movie that swaps quiet tragedy for, blood-spattered flannel and power tools. It's a film that really shouldn't work, but it does.
Through sheer audacity, yeah. It became a cult classic.
Exactly. Now, before we really plunge into the beautiful, bizarre heart of this movie, I just want to take a quick second to thank the entire community at the Dark Zero Horror Network for tuning in.
We really appreciate it.
We do. And if you haven't already, please do us a huge favor. Like and subscribe to the channel. It genuinely really helps us continue to do these kinds of deep dives.
It makes a huge difference.
Okay, so today we are cracking open the source material on 1992's Pet Sematary Two, a film that critics pretty much panned on release.
Oh, they hated it. Called it messy, nonsensical.
Right. But today it stands as this absolutely fascinating, loud, neon grunge time capsule. So our mission here is to unpack the sources and understand exactly why this movie, with director Mary Lambert returning, found its following and became a campy horror classic.
Despite some, let's say, glaring narrative flaws.
Oh, massive flaws.
And you have to set the stage because the production history really explains everything. Paramount they were desperate for a follow-up to the '89 film.
Of course.
They gave it an $8 million budget. It grossed about $17 million. Respectable. But the crucial piece of context, the thing that tells you everything you need to know, is that Stephen King had his name taken off the film before release.
Wow. That is the ultimate signpost, isn't it?
It tells you this sequel was going far, far away from the quiet terror of the original.
Okay, let's unpack that, because the sources paint a really clear picture of a creative vision just immediately colliding with what the studio wanted.
Right. Mary Lambert, who did such a fantastic job with the first one, she wanted to keep some of that emotional continuity. Her initial idea was actually pretty elegant.
What was it?
She wanted the sequel to focus on Ellie Creed, the teenage survivor. To explore her trauma after losing her entire family. It would have been a direct continuation of the first film's themes.
But Hollywood in the early 90s had other ideas. Why did Paramount say no to that? I mean, she's an established character who survived.
It was all about marketability. The studio, they weren't confident a teenage girl could carry a horror franchise at that time.
Hard to believe now, but yeah.
They wanted a known commodity, someone who would appeal directly to male teens. And that forced this massive pivot, a new script, a new family, and a male lead who was a hot commodity right at that moment.
Which brings us to Edward Furlong, who was, he was riding high off the massive success of Terminator 2.
Absolutely. The movie introduces his character, Jeff Matthews, right at a moment of trauma. He literally watches his actress mother, Renee Hallow, die by accidental electrocution on the set of her own B-horror movie.
It's such a ridiculous opening.
It is. It's just there to create a new reason for tragedy. So Jeff's father, Chase, a veterinarian played by Anthony Edwards, moves them both to Ludlow, Maine to get Jeff out of Hollywood.
And then the movie it takes the rules of the burial ground and completely flips the script.
It's the classic sequel switcheroo, right? The original was a cat, then a child, driven by a father's grief.
Here, the catalyst is a dog named Zoe.
Exactly. And the motivation shifts. It's not about a father defying nature anymore. It centers on these troubled teenagers, Jeff and his new friend Drew Gilbert, trying to resurrect their loved ones.
And Drew is. He's the local kid who is just tormented relentlessly by his stepfather, Gus Gilbert, the town sheriff.
Gus Gilbert, played by Clancy Brown, he's set up immediately as this hateful, abusive figure. And to kick the whole plot off, he shoots Drew's dog, Zowie. He's just irredeemable from the start.
And we also get the local bully, Clyde Parker, who is the jerk from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, right?
Yep. Cementing those very specific 90s teen drama tropes.
You know, I find the father, Chase Matthews, really interesting. The sources highlight that he's philosophically the complete opposite of Louis Creed.
That's a key point.
Yeah.
Chase is a vet. He understands and accepts death. He's the moral counterpoint to Leary's denial. When he sees the reanimated Zowie, he notices there's no heartbeat, the cells are deteriorating. He's just disgusted.
He knows a line has been crossed.
Right. He totally rejects the burial ground. It implies that this time, even the character who understands death is completely powerless to stop the chaos the kids are about to unleash.
Which makes perfect sense because the 3 years between 89 and 92, that's a monumental cultural shift.
Oh, absolutely. The film is aggressively a horror timestamp of 1992. The aesthetic is. It's angry, it's grunge. It looks like Maine got covered in a layer of Seattle.
Blood-spattered leaves and everyone is in flannel.
It's a total shift from quiet dread to something loud and just aggressive.
It feels like a movie made for teenagers in 1992. It's bombastic, ridiculous, and kind of silly because it feels like a really long music video sometimes.
The soundtrack is completely integral to that vibe. You have L7, Dramarama, the Jesus and Mary chain. It's this loud, alternative rock backbone.
And the Ramones for the credits, of course.
Of course. The music is basically telling you to not take any of this seriously. Just feel the energy.
And nothing signals the shift to full camp, quite like that bizarre Tracy Lords power ballad.
Ugh, the sex dream.
During Chase's dream where he's with the topless woman who suddenly has the head of a dog.
That scene is legendary for being so tonally weird. But that kind of becomes the film's tone, right? Anything goes.
Let's talk about the horror itself, because if the original was terror and sorrow, this sequel is just about visceral shocks and gore.
Absolutely. It's surprisingly mean-spirited, which is what pushes it into being a true black comedy. And it leans so heavily on pre-CGI practical effects for pure shock value.
So what are some of the most relentlessly cruel examples that show that lack of restraint?
Well, first, the animal cruelty. The resurrected zombie dog, Zowie. He breaks out of the vet clinic and just brutally kills 3 adorable kittens.
Yeah.
It's a shockingly dark moment right at the start.
Yeah, that sets a tone.
And then you have the death of Drew and his mother. They're run off the road by Gus into a potato truck, and there's this lingering shot of a severed leg just lying in a pile of mashed potatoes.
It's designed for maximum gross-out factor.
Exactly. And the body horror of the zombies is just grotesque. When the resurrected Renee attacks the housekeeper and rips her eye out, I mean, the effects team went for pure disgust.
So, if the movie is defined by this chaos, let's talk performances. Edward Furlong was the star, but the sources say his performance is a little cheesy, maybe.
It's a bit awkward. He was there for the name, but the energy of the film, the reason we're even talking about it, rests entirely on one person, Clancy Brown.
As Sheriff Gus Gilbert.
He completely hijacks the movie. Before he dies, Gus is just a hateful jerk.
But once he's killed by Zowie and buried, the whole movie shifts from this, dysfunctional family drama into just unhinged mayhem.
Precisely. Post-resurrection Gus is an utterly extra-crazy force of nature. He becomes this perfect mix of Jack Torrance's intensity and Freddy Krueger's wisecracking sadism.
And he becomes this sort of evil mentor to Jeff.
Exactly. He's driven by the burial ground to create more zombies. And what's fascinating is how the rules affect him. The original Gus was awful, but when he first comes back, he's actually quieter. A little nice for a minute. Before he devolves into this sadistic monster who skins pet rabbits for dinner. The burial ground doesn't just reanimate. It corrupts the soul into something actively malicious.
His over-the-top scenery-chewing performance is why it's a cult classic. I love the details from the sources, like his slasher smile and his Jabba table manners.
He embraces the villainy with so much glee. His most iconic line, delivered while trying to drill out Chase's eye, just sums it all up. No brain, no pain.
That's so perfectly, cartoonishly evil.
And that performance earned him a nomination for Best Supporting Actor at the Fangoria Chainsaw Awards. He lost to Anthony Hopkins for Dracula, but still. That's serious recognition for a role that is basically chewing on the furniture.
That's high praise. Which brings us to the part where narrative logic just completely collapses.
The rules are already pretty sketchy, right? A friendly dog comes back as a glowing-eyed hellhound.
But the truly illogical plot hole, the big one, is after Zowie kills Gus. The kids are safe, the abusive stepfather is gone, they could just walk away. And what do?
They look at this murderous zombie dog they just created, look at the dead body of their tormentor, and decide, yeah, let's bury him in the murder magic dirt too.
It makes zero sense for the characters.
But it's the exact moment the film fully embraces being a wild spectacle. It stops trying to tell a story and just tries to be as entertainingly chaotic as possible.
And that allows Gus to push Jeff into resurrecting his own mom. But first, we get a very satisfying death for the bully, Clyde.
A truly spectacular practical effect. His scarf gets caught in a motorbike wheel and just grinds off half his face.
It's so brutal, and it exists only for audience satisfaction.
And it's just a warm-up for the final battle in the burning attic. A complete Royal Rumble. You've got Zombie Renee, who Gus helped dig up.
She looks pristine at first, then just locks him in the attic and sets it on fire.
And she's shrieking, Jeff, I don't want to be alone! Dead is better! It's this bizarre mix of the original's emotion twisted into pure mania.
But the climax also gives us the new rules, right? Chase kills Zowie and Gus again just by shooting them in the head.
Yep. Our zombies are different. And Jeff kills zombie Clyde, again with a live wire that makes his head explode.
And Renee is finally destroyed when her mortician's wax melts in the fire.
A bizarre, high-octane ending. But the result is actually a bittersweet ending, which is very different from the first film. Chase and Jeff survive. They get to leave Ludlow.
Which brings us to its legacy. Critics hated it, 21% on Rotten Tomatoes, but audiences, they gave it a B Cinema score.
The story was weak, but audiences just embraced it as this fun, entertaining Gorn fest. It was better at special effects than telling a coherent story, and for them, that was enough.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Pet Sematary 2 is fundamentally a document of 90s horror. It's loud, it's mean, illogical, and it trades philosophical weight for pure, campy, violent mayhem.
But it's anchored by that magnificent Clancy Brown performance, which makes it eternally rewatchable.
And that's really the core takeaway. This film is a time capsule of early 90s horror, made for teens unafraid to go there, long before the Scream era rules were a thing.
The sequel's failures are what make it a success, because it just refuses to be serious.
Exactly.
But consider this for a final thought. If the original film was this powerful, draining meditation on grief, and the sequel completely rejects that and turns into a dark comedic bloodbath where logic just collapses, is Pet Sematary 2 unintentionally making a kind of meta-commentary?
Go on.
By embracing this level of absurdity and chaos, does the sequel argue that once you breach that profound boundary of death, the only sane artistic response, the only way to follow that story up, is to embrace the unhinged chaos that follows? Does it suggest that maybe, for the seriousness of the story itself, dead is better?
That is something to chew on. As you ponder the nihilistic joy of exploding zombie heads, be sure to explore some other bizarre sequels to serious horror classics. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.